Hello Greenstylers, this is Cynthia and today we will be sewing the Greenstyle bubble skirt together. Bubble skirt comes with some great options including 4 distinct length options: upper thigh, mid thigh, at the knee, or below the knee length. The pattern caters to your preference. You can create the bubble effect at the bottom using gathers or pleats. In addition, you can choose between an elasticized waistband or a yoga style waistband. And optionally, you can add seamless shorts underneath or pockets to the front. Today we'll be making this youth size bubble skirt and the adult steps are the same. We'll be making the elasticized waistband, we'll include the undershorts, and we'll be using gathering to make the bubble effect at the bottom, but I will also show you the pleats. If you're hoping to see pockets and top stitching on the waistband, I will give you links for those throughout the video when we get to that step and also in the video description below. And by the way, the bubble skirt does pair perfectly with the sky tank, which is seen here. The bubble skirt was designed for athletic or similar knits, but we did see lots of variety in the testing group, including Cotton Lycra, which is what I used. For the elasticized waistband, you'll need a 4-way stretch fabric with at least 25% stretch. For the yoga waistband, you'll want something with at least 50% stretch, as that'll need to stretch more. For the lining and undershorts, you'll want something with at least 75 to 100% horizontal stretch. Cut one of piece S1, the main front on the fold. If making the adult version, you'll notice that there are 2 file options, one called more gathering and one called less gathering. That refers to the top of the skirt and an option to have more gathering just under your waistband. Transfer notches from the pattern piece onto your fabric and also mark the center top and bottom from your pattern piece onto your fabric. If making pockets, cut the pocket openings along this pocket cut line. Elasticized waistband, cut the straight cut line like me. If making the yoga waistband, you're going to cut the curved waistband cut line that's down here. Cut one of piece S2, the back main on the fold. Transfer notches onto your fabric like so. And I also recommend marking the center, top, and bottom of the skirt as well. If you're doing the pleats, transfer the pleat markings onto your fabric, and that goes for the front piece as well, so go back and do that if you did not. Additionally, I mark the pattern piece on these because they front and back do look very similar. Cut one of each piece L1 and L2, the front and back liner pieces. I suggest marking them with the pattern number or name, as well as the top and bottom center of each of these pieces. Cut one of piece S6, the elastic waistband on the fold, but if your fabric isn't wide enough, you can also cut 2 of these and seam them in the center. If you cut on the fold like I did, mark the center point of the waistband and you're good to go. If doing the yoga base waistband, cut pieces S6 and S7, the front and back yoga waistband. For the optional seamless shorts, cut 2 of piece H1 as mirror images. Because this will not be used as an athletic garment for us, I will not be adding the gusset for extra support at the crotch, but if you are adding the gusset, make sure to cut that back piece along the gusset cut line on both pieces. In addition, you'll need to cut 2 of the gusset pattern piece. Cut a piece of elastic for the elasticized waistband and be sure to consult your tutorial for the size of elastic and the length to cut it. And I always recommend stretching elastic around your body to make sure it's comfortable, as many elastics vary in quality and everybody has different preferences. As I mentioned before, I'll not be making pockets, but if you are, make sure you cut along the pocket cut line, and you can follow my tutorial for the Brooklyn Joggers pocket step linked right here. Your pockets are done, or if you're skipping them, bring over your 2 liner pieces. Align them at the side seams with right sides together and pin or clip into place. Stitch using a stretch stitch or serger and a 3/8 inch seam allowance. And then it will look like this. If using gathers, skip ahead to the gathers section. previously drew my pleat markings, but now I've added pins to all of them, and I love using pins to make the pleats. I find them really helpful. Notice that the markings are in pairs. Each pair will create one pleat. Grasp the fabric at the pin that's closer toward the center of the skirt and fold it over its partner. You've now created a top fold and a bottom fold at these two marks. Now neaten your pleat so that the raw edges are aligned, and making sure that the pleat marking or your pins are right at the folds. Then pin your pleat into place. Repeat these steps with the next two pins to create a second pleat. For the two pleats on the opposite side of the skirt, we're going to fold in the opposite direction. Again, grasping the pleat that's toward the center of the skirt and folding it over its partner to create a pleat that's going toward the left. Check to make sure your pleats are going the right directions by slipping your fingers into the pleats, just like so. Then baste your pleats into place, stitching about 1/4 inch away from the raw edge of the fabric. Repeat these steps for your other skirt piece. For the gathered version, we'll be stitching along this bottom edge of the skirt. Begin stitching about 1/2 inch away from the side seam. Your first row of gathering stitches will be about 1/8 inch away from that bottom edge, and be sure to set your sewing machine to the longest stitch length on a straight stitch. Stop at 1/2 inch away from the side seam on the other end, and make sure to leave your thread tails long. Now make your second row of stitches another 1/8 inch over, so that will be about 1/4 inch away from the edge. Now we're going to gather up the bottom of that skirt. Bring the skirt and the liner over to the table, and I recommend marking the center on both to help you achieve even gathers. Grab the bobbin thread and pull to create those gathers until the bottom of the skirt is the same width as that of the liner. Repeat these gathering steps with the back skirt piece. Once both the front and back are gathered, you'll lay them on the table, aligning the side seams and with right sides together, and pin or clip in place along the side seams. Stitch with a stretch stitch or serger and a 3/8 inch seam allowance. When stitching those side seams, just make sure to pull the thread tails from your gathering stitches out of the way so that they don't get caught up in that seam or get cut off at all. We still want to keep them in case we have some adjustments to make in a later step. Now's the time when we'll use those thread tails that we preserved from earlier. Take this opportunity before attaching the liner to the main skirt to adjust those gathers and get them nice and even. When both sides are fixed, turn your skirt with right sides out. With your liner wrong side out, we'll slip the skirt into the liner so that right sides are touching. Align both skirts along the bottom edge and then pin or clip into place. stitch using a stretch stitch or serger and a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Now turn the liner so that it is on the inside of the skirt and you'll end up with wrong sides together. Pull up the top edge of the liner to meet the top edge of the skirt, and you will find that the liner is a little bit shorter than the main skirt, and that's intentional so that it pulls the bottom of the main skirt underneath so that when worn, all you see is the main fabric. Align the top edges of the liner and the main skirt together and pin them in place. First, match and pin the two side seams and then the center front and center back. To add additional pins, you will need to stretch the liner in order to evenly distribute the pins to the main skirt. Now baste all around this top edge of the skirt. Okay, here's what it will look like with the top edge basted, and if we look down at the bottom we can see that the main skirt is being pulled toward the inside, and that is correct. For the optional seamless shorts, if you're using the gusset, make sure you cut along the gusset cut line, and if you'd like to follow a video to add that gusset, click here to go over to the Restore Pants video and follow that gusset tutorial, and then join us back here. Now with the gusset attached, if you're using it, align both pieces with right sides together and pin or clip along both crotch seams. Stitch using a stretch stitch or serger and a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Now open out the legs of the shorts like so. So you have two little legs now. We're going to align the inner leg seam edges and pin or clip from hemline to hemline, making sure to line up that center seam so that we can stitch using a stretch stitch or serger and a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Now let's hem the bottom of these shorts. Do that by turning up the bottom edge 1 inch toward the wrong side. As you can see, I didn't turn mine up quite 1 inch. I am taking a little bit of artistic license, and to be honest, when it comes to undershorts, I tend to be less careful with my hemming because they'll almost never be seen. Top stitch your hem using a zigzag, twin needle, or cover stitch. The sewing machine is what I happen to have the correct color thread in, so that's what gets to top stitch my undershorts today. Now with your shorts right side out, slip them into the skirt, making sure to align the back of the shorts with the back of the skirt. I went ahead and put 2 clips on the center back of the skirt in order to help me remember which is the back, with a single clip on the front center. You can align the center back seam of the shorts with your center marking on the skirt, front and back. Stretch your shorts in order to clip into place all the way around that top edge. Baste into place using a straight stitch once again and the longest stitch length on your sewing machine. Fold the elastic waistband in half with right sides together, pin or clip, and then stitch along the short end using a straight stitch on your sewing machine. Press the seam allowance open and then fold it in half lengthwise with wrong sides together so it will look like this. We'll now pin or clip the waistband to the skirt. I've already marked quarter points on my waistband to match up with quarter points or the seams on my skirt. Stitch using a stretch stitch or serger and a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Leave a 1 inch opening at the center back. There's my center back seam, and I've added these 3 clips to remind myself to stop stitching when I get to them. And where are my eagle eyes out there who noticed that I'm using a basting stitch here? Yes, that's true. I'm a huge fan of being very careful and doing an extra basting stitch before the real stitch, and you'll find out why in a minute. But I will go ahead and tell you. It's because sometimes those fabrics like to shift around. The bottom of that waistband is not basted together, and the inner layer likes to move and be tricky. And here's a glimpse at the opening in the back of the waistband. There's that back seam. Now's a good time to flip up that waistband and check your stitches and make sure that, oh, here it is. You can see the spot where my waistband edge snuck away from me. I've got a nice hole there, but because I basted, it's an easy fix. Once any mistakes are fixed, you can go over those basting stitches with a stretch stitch or serger. And once you've done that, you'll insert your elastic into the opening in the back of your waistband. Use your tool of choice. Mine is a safety pin to thread the elastic all the way around. Overlap the ends of the elastic and secure in place using a safety pin, and then double check to make sure that the elastic didn't twist anywhere inside of the waistband, which it likes to do sometimes. Now pull the elastic back out. You'll want to pull it out a few inches to give yourself some breathing room to close those ends by stitching in the shape of an X using a small stitch length in a straight stitch. Now carefully align those raw edges and those back seams in order to close up the opening on that back waistband. Stitch using a stretch stitch or serger and a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Carefully remove any basting stitches that are still visible on the outside of your skirt. And at this point you can be done, but optionally you can sew rows of stitches onto the waistband to give it a more sporty look. I won't be doing that here, but I do it on the 3R Shorts video, and you can see that by clicking here and going to minute 35:50 on that video. And with that, we are done. Congratulations on completing your very own Greenstyle bubble skirt. I know that you'll love this adorable new piece to your wardrobe. Thanks once again for sewing along with me. I hope you have found this video helpful. I love hearing back from you and seeing your makes, so please be sure to share your bubble skirts across social media using hashtag #GSBubbleSkirt. Until next time, happy sewing from me and all of us at Greenstyle.